conversations like this at all of our meetings on Monday nights. We've interviewed in total, I would guess, about 30 people at this point, and we are still going. This coming Monday night, we're going to have representatives from the Democratic and the Republican Party to come, and we'll discuss with them the pros and cons of partisan, non-partisan elections, because we need to dissect every one of these variables to make sure when we make a recommendation to the voters that it's comprehensive. I don't know if I explained this, but when we do present a question for the ballot, it will be a package. We will have chosen at that point whether we like partisan, nonpartisan, whether we want staggered or concurrent. And all those variables, we will have selected the one that we feel is the most effective for the city. And we will be presenting as a question on the ballot the whole package of this is the form of government. One of the things we can do, though, in addition to recommending that form of government, is to recommend what I've been referring to as tweaks to the existing government. So even though that issue of council people not being responsible for given areas, if that is not part of the government, we can still suggest to the city council, we think this is really a good idea. You ought to look at modifying our current form of government to include this aspect of it, and then it's up to the council to act on it or not act on it. So we have two options. We can actually have it put to the vote for the voters, or we can say, no, our existing form is fine, but we think you ought to, add these aspects to our existing form. Maybe we decide the city needs an IT department and it doesn't have an IT department. Anything that we've come across in all of our investigations will be in our report and would then be in the form of a recommendation. Or maybe we'll do both. Thank you all for coming this morning, and I have not said that already. We're now going to invite public participation. So we would love you to come to the microphone, introduce yourself, and tell us what you think. We are here to take notes and to listen to what you have to say today. We're going to try to defer all questions because we need to hear from you, so we don't want to take up the time answering questions about what we've learned so far. We're going to keep a list of all the questions, and we're going to dedicate our May 6th meeting to answering those questions. So if there's something burning that you really need to know the answer to, we'll get to it on May 6th. But right now, we just invite all of you to come to the microphone and tell us what you think. So there's the podium. Can I have a show of hands about how many people would like to speak? Okay. You can have as long as you want. I was going to suggest that we limit the time the other person can talk, but if you want to, you don't have anything you want to add at this point. You're sure you don't want to ask questions? Oh, please change your mind because the sandwiches aren't coming until 11:30.
Hi.
Identify yourself.
Paul Hill, 2nd Avenue, Asbury Park.
You're on TV.
Great. Hey, first of all, thank you for taking on this arduous task of being on this committee. I saw you guys getting signatures, and that in itself was a lot of work. And that was just the beginning, I imagine. But in any case, I'd just like to express 2 or 3 opinions here. One, I do support the staggered terms. I think 4 years is too long, and it doesn't allow the people to give the council any real direction aside from what happens at the council meetings. If nothing else, I would be very happy to see that happen. On the other hand, I hope you're not even considering the ward system. I think it would be disastrous for the city, but I don't think you would. And the last things are, the idea of going partisan in this town, I just think it would be very bad for the city. I think, there's enough types of divisions in this town that we don't need to add a Republican, Independent, Democrat divide to the mix. I think that would be very bad for us. And I also think that moving the elections to November would would make things even worse, especially if it went to a partisan system, because the numbers of people that vote straight ticket would, negate real discussion of the issues in this town. I think when the elections are held in May, all we're talking about is what's going on in town and who's best to represent us. I really hope we keep that aspect of our system of government here. And I would hate to see in a town that's more Democrat than Republican, if we add the partisan mix to May elections, well then there's no point in having a debate. There's just too many people voting Democrat here. So I think to have real open debate, we keep the partisanship out of the form of government, and we keep it in May where people really talking about the issues affecting Asbury Park and not the issues affecting the state and the country. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm leaning very strongly against.
Could you identify yourself?
Oh, my name is Andy Paulin. I'm just a resident and an interested citizen of Asbury Park. First of all, I consider the council manager system, which is what we have now, the least desirable for our city, mostly because it gives too much power to one person and not enough power to the elected members of the council. Secondly, I am leaning most toward the mayor council administrator, although I have a really hard time with staggered elections every year. I think there needs to be more continuity in city government than that. And there needs to be time, as was explained today, for initiatives to be developed and to come to fruition. And thirdly, I also agree that partisan elections would be disastrous, and that the idea of what is it, zones? What do they call it? Wards is a really bad thing for this particular city as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, good morning. I'm Geneva Smallwood. I live in Asbury Park. And I have to say that I just experienced one of those, the partisan election in November, the state of November. I have to say that more voters came out in November, and it was very refreshing as related to the Board of Education, because in April we didn't have a lot of voters. So then you had 300 or 400, maybe 500 people deciding who's going to be on Board of Education, which is really an important position. And in November you had close to 9,000 people able to talk about things happening at Asbury Park. And I have to say the voters did come out, and they did vote on the board, and I think they were educated. And I think we still had to campaign very hard, although it was partisan. So I think that's good for Asbury Park because it brings more people out. But as far as the change of government, I've been, I'm going to say, a proponent for the change of government since I've lived in the city. I think the strong manager and what we would call a lead council really does the work in this town. I think we need to really have more input on the council, mayor and council. I appreciate both speakers today. The mayor and administrative perspective is an interesting one. I am a little concerned about every year voting. I mean, that would be a problem. I think we need at least 2-year continuity, people getting in place. But I think we give our council, and we have more responsibility, and I think we get quality people that are really taking interest in government. And although our people, I would say, for the most part, are very interested in Asbury Park, but they don't have the a true authority. It's more ceremonial, and they're very nice people, and they run around, they do a lot of good things for us on a preference, but they don't have the everyday operational hands-on experience. So therefore, they don't get to really make the real changes that I think we really need to continue to make Asbury Park a better place to live. A lot of good things are going on, but I think we're in the right place. I will certainly commend the commission, keep up the good work, and I'm looking forward to your report.
Thank you.
Jim Key, 608, Cookman Avenue, or 646, I'm sorry, 608. Has there been deliberation, and you can bank this question and answer it next meeting, has there been deliberation by the committee with regard to the salaries that would be paid under these different forms of government? Because right now we have, it's actually 3 jobs in terms of the work that needs to be done by council people under our current form, with people being paid $7,500 a year. It would seem under the mayor and council form of government, the mayor would in effect need to be a full-time employee, really taking over the role that currently the city manager has. So would the salary for the mayor be, over $100,000 a year?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
We have discussed it. We have reached absolutely no conclusion, but we are aware that if we switch to a form that requires a more involved mayor, compensation could become an issue.
Okay. And you may want to take a look at Ocean City, New Jersey.
Ocean City?
Yeah. I think they have, in terms of being a beachfront community that really, they are a model for attracting tourism and entertainment, geared a little bit more towards families than maybe Asbury wants to have more of a mix. But I think their form of government works well, and when you look at what their salaries are, it's indicative of this is a little bit more than just a part-time job. There's a heavy lift that's involved with being on council.
Yeah, we understand that if we do that form, people will have to get paid. But we also encourage people that know the job better, will work better, so they don't get paid.
Absolutely. I think if you're going to be offering a $100,000 or 6-figure salary, whatever it might be, you're going to want the person to hold that position to have the professional capabilities to execute.
Absolutely.
And thanks for your work. I think it's really important.
Thank you. And thanks for the suggestion about Ocean City. If anybody else has a municipality in mind that you think that we should look at, we tried very hard to find municipalities that were similar to Asbury Park, and there aren't any. Asbury Park is unique. It's very unique. And even all the people we've consulted with agree with us. Asbury Park is very unique.
I just have a clarification because they came in a little late.
Sure.
Well, that's what we do.
Amy Quinn, 400 Deal Lake Drive. So with the council and manager and the mayor and council, it does talk about making nonpartisan November elections, but it seems, and with the mayor, council, administrator, it says elections, it has to be partisan. That's not tweakable.
Right.
Amy, you remember what you just said about what Governor Christie did pass the law, so that when we move to November, if you want to remain nonpartisan, you can.
But if you go to the mayor, council, administrator form, you're going to a partisan.
You have
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
so,
you have
so
to
it
show.
would be partisan.
Right.
Yes, the mayor, council, and minister will have to be partisan.
Right.
We have something?
I'm just a little confused about why there's even a discussion about, Mr. Montessori.
I'm sorry, could you just identify yourself?
I'm Tricia Rizzo, Asbury Park resident. Mr. Montessori makes the point that a partisan election increases the public's participation in that form of government. And I'm not seeing that relation. He says it's on a smaller level, this is what we have on a local level, similar to what we have in the federal government. Well, right now we have a federal government that's highly partisan. Participation into the opinion of how they should be voting has been made in certain issues 190%. And yet the partisanship of that issue still did not bring about the participation that the people put into it. The people said this is what we want, and the politics of the situation did exactly the opposite. If the issue is increasing participation in government, then we should signage the mayor's elections the way we do events that occur around here. Then it's a voter turnout issue, as opposed to I don't see, I guess I'm missing the point how adding partisanship, when we see what it's done to create a complete standstill on the federal level, if we're looking to do that on a smaller level, then I don't understand what the benefit of doing that would be. Adding more politics to a situation at this point in time in the state of our country at large doesn't seem to benefit the people. It benefits the politicians whose job is to get reelected and to stay in government. But I don't understand where partisanship is the issue as much as maybe voter turnout is the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Thank you.
Ed Downgarden, Fourth Avenue. Ed Downgarden, Fourth Avenue. I'm going to kind of come back to what Paul said earlier, and sort of land on that same side of the fence. I'm very much in favor of the mayor council administrator. I like the balance of how that power is structured. And I think the ward system is not a good system. I like the idea of staggered terms. Not quite sure I like the length of it, but I think that these are all compromises. The biggest problem that I do have is the partisan aspect. I don't know whether that is one of those compromises that needs to be made for that, if there is no other option, which is what I'm kind of hearing. So I'm a little bit torn in terms of that. How important is that partisan versus nonpartisan going to be? If this was a Chinese laundry list, I would go for May nonpartisan mayor council administrator. I think that works really well, but I know that doesn't sound like we have that. So I'm not sure where you guys are going to land on that, but I think that overall, I think the important part to me becomes that balance of power of who's controlling what. I think that's the most important thing over everything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you like the mayor council administrator, but not partisan aspect.
We have to check with the Transit on that if it can be changed. When an ordinance could be put in, then we change that. We're not sure. We think we can't, but we can try to check it.
It sounded like from everyone, from again, the speakers that were over here, there was kind of mentioned some. But again, I also agree with this idea of separating out local from national to have it in May. I understand the turnout is not great, but that's a turnout issue that is, I think it is a good idea to concentrate on local as opposed to being confused by what's going on the national level. Thank you.
At our next charter study meeting, we will have more information on this mayor council administrative form, with the elections being in November and happen to be partisan. It is my understanding that we can remain nonpartisan with that form, but we will have more information at our next meeting. Thank you.
I think Paul, you don't think so.
I don't know that, because the way it depends upon the statute. Because the elections are moved from one to the other, the form of government dictates what you are within the government. So I'm not really sure, Commissioner. My opinion is that it doesn't. The only way you can change the charter is to change the legislation. So if you wanted to mount a campaign to change the mayor council administrator, get it into the legislature, you're going to put all your process in abeyance, because we made some nuanced changes to it with the township attorney position, which brought it under the auspices of mayor instead of a one-year appointment. And it took us 12 to 18 months to get it done through the legislature. So you'd have to change the law.
You said 12 to 18 months through the legislature?
Sure, yeah. Trust me, I know the legislative process. That's my business. Guaranteed it'll take that period of time, because you see what's going to happen is you're going to then have other municipalities weighing in, who likes it, who doesn't like it. What you're going through here today would be the same exact thing you get on a statewide level until something would happen. So it could take some time to get it through the legislature. So it's potentially possible.
At the end of that process, they might say no.
No, correct. Yeah, so your thought about moving, I think you can move a nonpartisan election that's now a form of government in May, you can move it to November, okay? But you can't change the form and then move it to November. See, that's the difference. And the thought about, someone asked me a question about what the partisan, nonpartisan North Brunswick, I would say about that difference of 2 to 1. But I didn't mention to you the number of independents in North Brunswick. The independent voter population in North Brunswick is over 50%, 60% of the voter turnout. So you see there's a difference here, there's a balance. So yes, the Democrats outweighed the Republicans who are registered, but the independents were extremely higher than that. So you really have to, and I'm looking at people right here. I'd have to say that many of you right here would be considered independent voters.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to add this idea of going to November. I mean, yes, that will increase the voter turnout for sure, but it's not necessarily turning out the voters that are up to speed on what's going on in the city. They'll come to vote on national state issues, and then because so many people don't pay attention to local politics, they'll just vote for whatever. I don't think that's a really informed vote, and I really think it's important to keep these elections in May where people who are voting know the issues, know the candidates, and are making the best decisions for themselves and for the community.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry.
One of the purposes of government is to govern and to have more people involved in what's going on. As Mr. Maricera said, when he first got elected, he was anonymous. So we as a commission and those who are elected must give each and every individual the option of choosing who they want to elect them. Whether they're informed about government on a local level or state level. That's what our Constitution is about. Everyone has the right to choose who they want to elect them. If someone would choose to elect 5 5th graders to put up here and represent it, that's their right. This is what our country is about, giving people the right to elect who they want to represent.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just wanted to add some data to the discussion on partisan, nonpartisan, what the demographic of Asbury Park is. We are 37% Democrat, 7% Republican, 56% independent.
So there you are. We have the independent.
So where are those figures? Where are those figures from?
If you go to the county and you can look at the breakdown. Yeah. Or if you do, I'm fairly certain if you did, there's like a city data, just do a Google search for Asbury Park and you can pull a lot of really interesting data points on Asbury. You probably find it.
Anybody else, please? We want to hear you. This is one of the reasons we have this forum.
It's just your opinion. You're not held to it. You won't be criticized for it. We have no opinions yet, so we're open to anything.
And if you already spoke, feel free to speak again. We got until 11:30.
Speak again.
Okay.
Well, I think Mr. Fernando is there.
Happy to be here.
I was surprised.
You're wasting my time.
Yes, I'm sure. For your heart.
So what do you want to see you? Feel free. No comment. So I think that everybody doesn't seem to agree that the system we have, at the San Jose down in Asbury Park, it seems like everyone seems to agree that the system we currently have, that only 2% of the cities adopt, is a good system, and we're looking to recommend another system. The elections in May, how much does that cost the city to have the election?
That's $20,000 an election.
$20,000? Oh, that was more. Okay. So that I guess the money is not the deciding factor.
No.
But it is a good idea to have a big voter turnout. I think that every single year is too much. Every other year is probably a better option. And to have, no offense, to have a elected person making the big decisions is probably a better option for accountability. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Tony for two. Uncle two for all right, so let me just say something about this form of government. The decisions, the policy decisions under this form of government are made by the 5 individuals that sit at this dais. They are not made by the city manager. Okay? If you have a strong mayor form, which we call a strong mayor, the mayor-council form, the mayor is the chief executive officer, does the hiring and firing, etc. The policy is recommended by the mayor. In this form of government, the policy decisions are all made by the governing body. So, and trust me, I'm 66 years old. I've been in government for 35 years. I am happy with whatever this community decides to do. I think I'm really happy with that. And trust me, I mean that. I've got a lot of options in my life right now. I care about the city. I care about our future. And I want to make sure at this forum that when people, especially the commissioners, make recommendations, not making them some false pretense. I don't mean that you're making them false information, I guess. That the city manager makes policy in the city. He or she does not. Okay? All the policy decisions are made by the governing body. The city manager does have the power, and I think the mayor made a very good point before. When the budget is adopted, okay, the city manager has the authority to operate within the budget adopted by the governing body. And trust me on this one, we are a transitional aid city. I can't even order a pencil without the state approving it. So this straw man type of situation that you may think is going on in the city is not going on in the city. But the more important piece I think is important for the discussion is the power that the governing body has. What I'm hearing is this notion that somehow the 5 individuals, men and women that sit on the dais, are just like, they've got nothing to do, they've got no authority, they've got no influence. The governing body makes all the final decisions. I think the decision that the city residents need to make is, who do you want sitting up here? But it's not the form of government that changes the authority that these individuals have. And all the policy decisions are ultimately made by the council. Now, Jim Keevy is in the audience. He sat up here. I think Jim is and you can talk to him. He's a good example of someone who had a lot to say when he was here. Not often, oftentimes disagreed with other members of the council. But that's the give and take on the policy side. That's really the point I want to make. And whatever form of government that you choose, it's the people you elect to sit up here that ultimately really make a difference in your city. Thank you.
Before you step away from the microphone, I just want to point out on the document that you were provided today, when you go home and read it and study it, there will be a test. You have to really read every single word, because actually what Mr. Reedy just described is in the council manager form of government, it says right there, council has the policy power. You can easily read right over that and not realize how impactful that statement is. But I was wondering if you could comment on a comparison of our existing form of government and the council manager form. I don't know if you have any experience or knowledge of it that is so similar to what we have now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let me put that in perspective. Since I've been in government a long time, I started in the city of Passaic, which was mayor-council form, what's called a strong mayor-council form, where the mayor is the CEO and the governing body, legislative body. I then went to Vernon Township, where I was an administrator in a township committee form. And that's what Ernie was talking about earlier. Very interesting form. He and I disagree on whether that would be the right form for Asbury Park, but in that form, the township committee has both the executive and the legislative authority, right? So all combined in one group. Then I was the administrator in Morristown for 9 years. And in Morristown, strong mayor, the mayor council form, strong mayor form where the mayor is the executive. Then I was in Montclair. And in Montclair, it's a council manager form, not the 1923 Council Manager Act, but the council manager form where the mayor is directly elected in that form, and has actually, in Montclair, the mayor has incredible authority because it's an appointed board of election, and the board of education, excuse me. It's an appointed board of education, and all the board of education members are appointed by the mayor. So in that form, and the mayor is directly elected. I disagree with that form. I don't think that authority to appoint the board of education should rest with one person. But in terms of the comparison that you're asking me to make, the council manager form in Montclair is very similar to the council member, the Faulkner form, but without the powers that the mayor has. And I say that the differences in those forms are just so nuanced. It's, I think if you were to, the difference between the Council Manager 23 Act and this form of government are very, very simple. The differences are very slight. It really comes down to the hiring a professional to do the day-to-day operations. That's the council manager form. The manager serves at the pleasure of the council. And truth of the matter is, if the council wants to have that stronger oversight in terms of policy that the council manager form, the council has that authority. But the whole essence of it is, and the reason this form was started back in the 30s, actually. I mean, the 23 Act is older than that, but most of the council manager forms were from the 30s. Was to take the politics out of the day-to-day operation, right? I mean, that's a call that the community will have to make in a strong mayor form. And I saw this in the township committee form when I was in Vernon, where you had the subcommittees, and you had a elected official overseeing different departments. And I witnessed elected officials picking people to work in those departments based upon who supported them in elections. I mean, that's, again, that comes down to the individual. Not all elected officials behave that way. But the council manager form is designed to take that temptation, if you will, out of the day-to-day mix. That's what that form is designed to do. So that you don't have someone running for office who then has the authority to make those types of appointments.
Thank you. Oh, wait, you want one question up here?
First of all, I've got to say thank you for stepping up. We can't be all comfortable having this conversation going on about form of government with the city manager, but thanks for stepping up.
At this point in my life, it's more comfortable than it ever has been.
Okay. But just one clarification, if you could, and around, I guess, the concern, not the concern, but just raising our awareness about how much executive awareness the policymakers in this form of government have. How in tune are they, or how often are they updated, or how often do they inquire about the day-to-day operations of the city's functions? I'm not sure if we covered that one.
Okay, no. Well, I can tell you that's more of a individual initiative. I have some elected officials in the 10 years that I've been here, well, the 35 years I've been in government, but in the 10 years I've been in Asbury, I have some elected officials who inquire about operations on a weekly basis, depending on what's going on in the city. Sometimes it's on the issues, it could be every day. As you all know, the council meets every other Wednesday, and the council has the opportunity at every council meeting during the council portion of it, council report portion of it, to ask questions, get updated, and they often do, almost every meeting. One of the council members says, well, what's going on with this and how are we doing with that? So there's that opportunity at a public meeting, but I have council members historically I've met with the mayor on a regular basis to do updates. But in this form of government, it's more of a, the mayor doesn't have any additional authority than the council members. But I've seen that when individuals are selected as the mayor, typically they take more initiative to stay on top of things. But the opportunity is there.
And then as Terry brought up this issue about policy and under a current...
I'm sorry, we're taping this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Under a current form of council manager, it does say, because I'm studying for the test, that the council has legislative and policy power, but the other forms don't say policy and under a current...
I'm sorry, we're taping this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Under a current form of council manager, it does say, because I'm studying for the test, that the council has legislative and policy power, but the other forms don't say anything about policy power. So the question for the commission is, how does policy enter into these other forms of government?
Important question. Could you document that, Jenny? I'm sorry, I didn't introduce Jenny Otley. She's our secretary. As you can see, documenting. That's a good question that we'll have to look at. Where I extracted this information from, it wasn't listed either, so good point. Thank you. Yes.
Louise Murray, excuse me, Louise Murray, Grand Avenue, Asbury Park, lifetime resident, lifelong resident. I'm probably the only one in this whole audience who's lived here all my life. Former councilwoman, and I've attended many of your meetings and listened to many of your speakers, and one in particular has said that we have an excellent form of government. And I happen to agree with them because of the fact, as Mr. Reedy said, the council dictates policy. The problem is the people you put up there. And having sat on council, I can attest to that, trust me. It was a ride, believe me. But anyway, that being said, I don't think there's anything wrong with our form of government. I think we have a lot more control than you think. And frankly, I would prefer the staggered elections for the simple reason right now we have a Chinese menu. Not one ticket is going to be put up there. Trust me, I can almost tell you. You can't have 26 people running for 5 seats. That is absurd. If you had staggered elections, it would give the community a chance to say, you know what, I think I'm going to try my hand at local politics. And somebody out there might say, I think I can do that on a 2-year basis or whatever. But when you're doing it every 4 years and you've got 5 people and the 5 seats are coming up, you're not really getting the cream of the crop, I don't think. I mean, no offense to all the people that are running, but I really, I mean, honestly, but I'm just saying, it might give the community a little more perspective and say, you know, I'm going to try it. I think I'm going to try it. You'll have less, I think you'll have more people in the long run to say, I might try for that seat. You won't have a whole bunch of people. But like I say, it's going to be a Chinese menu. And like I said, I've lived through all my life, and this form of government seemed to work. And I appreciate all that you guys are doing. And my other question is, again, well, it's not really a question. Well, it is a question. Come May, I don't know. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have staggered elections in May. I don't know that we have to push it to November. There's been a lot of talk about that, and I kind of like agree now. I didn't at first think that May was a good time to have a staggered election. However, after listening to a lot of the people, I kind of think it might be the best, because it would give, again, the community a chance to focus just on local issues and not get all bogged down with the politics of the United States. Okay,
Thank you.
And I would like to add a question to our sheet. Is just because you have staggered elections does not mean that they're going to be shorter terms. You could have 4-year terms that are staggered. So as a question to ourselves, we'll have to look into that and see what options are available. I believe they're all dictated by the state statute of how the staggered terms work for each form of government. But we'll look into that some more and make sure that we all understand if this staggered term in this form of government, then the terms are X number of years. Okay. Yes. Dwayne wants a little explanation of if we had the current form and switched to staggered terms. The most confusing aspect of that is the implementation of it, because for the first few elections, you've got some people running for, we would keep 4-year terms. You have some people running for 4-year terms, some people running for a 3-year term, some people running for a 2-year term. But then the objective would be to end up with an election, I think it's every 2 years for 4-year terms. But it's that implementation, those first few elections, when you're getting that in sync, that's the most confusing. So we need to. It's dictated by law. It says in the law exactly how you do it.
Yeah, it gives you all the information how to understand.
What I'm saying. Speak that mic. Thank you, Terry. What I'm saying is that it wouldn't be put on the ballot; it would be left up to the council, right?
No, it's not a ballot. It's not part of the question.
But we wouldn't be moving to a change like we have this current form now and say we want to stagger it. We kept this current form. We would have to present that to the governing body, and the governing body would have to decide on that because we're not changing forms.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's correct.
It would be just a recommendation to the private form of government buyer.
I'd
And
just
that
like
would
to
not
add-
be put on the
Unless we
ballot.
want to go out and file a petition.
Yeah, unless the petition has to say.
Go ahead.
Right.
Andy Paul again on 4th Avenue. Almost all of you know this already, but I really want to state for the record and give a time frame. This body here needs to reach a decision by September whether to propose that we keep the same form of government or
August.
that we have in August another form of government. Then it comes to a vote
In November.
during the regular elections, is that correct?
Yes.
And if there is a change, then there will be an election for city council, the following May or the following November, depending on the form of government that we as citizens elect. Therefore, realize that this coming election in May result in a city council that is only in power for a year.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one question. School board elections, are they involved in this discussion at all, or is that governed by a different matter?
Only to the extent that in our reading we have, as Mr. Reed suggested, there are some forms where the school board is actually appointed by the city council. And I don't think we found that it's true of any of these forms, but we will be, if we come upon it, you will know.
What about the election dates of the school boards? I always find them to be, nobody goes because nobody knows when there are this issue.
Well, they just changed, as Geneva mentioned, they just changed to November.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be in the
That's statewide, is that?
I believe it was optional by municipality, they could, or put it on November date.
Thank you.
Also, 3 years ago, I don't remember what year, But we used to have an appointed board on the school, and then they changed it to elected. And personally, I don't see any difference right now.
Come on.
Just for clarification on that, is it type 1 is appointed, type 1 is appointed, type 2 is elected? The type of school district isn't determined by the form of government, right? So to answer the question about, we're a type 2 school district, so we elect our school board members. That doesn't change, the form of government that we have does not change the type of school district that we are.
What determines that we're a type 2?
Type 1 and type 2. Yeah, it's just like type 1, it's an appointed board, right? Type 2, it's an elected board. That's what I'm saying. But that's not determined. It's not like if you have a council manager form, you automatically have an appointed board. Or there's an option in this board, right, to complete that. I just want to make that point.
Yeah, okay.
How do you get to the type 1 and type 2?
Referendum.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you've got to have an election, the city of New Brunswick just went through it. There are pardon me, I'm calling. The city of New Brunswick was an appointed school board for years. They used to be the system. They just went last year to a referendum election that changed it to an elected board. They had their first election. Actually, I think they were supposed to have their first elections last week or so. So it changes by referendum, and then you got the election process, and the people who are sitting on that board can then certainly run, as is similar here, if you change your form of government, or if you don't, if you tweak it, the city, people would have the opportunity to run, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all by referendum.
So at some point in time, there was a referendum to agree to that.
Yeah, they did. I forgot what year. It was way back in the 60s.
I was just wondering why the vote on the issue is going to occur in November as opposed to during regular elections. You know, the vote on the city government.
The vote on our commission findings will be in November.
November. Why would that be in November and not in May when we?
It's called for in the next general election. It's part of the Faulkner Act. The Faulkner Act
that was my question.
Created the guidelines for our commission.
And the vote has to occur in November, not during the regular city election.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
The commission is, once you file your report, it's 60 or
Within 90 days.
within 90 days,
So based on the
you have to hold an
committee,
election.
So
Yes.
based on the committee,
No,
that starts the
once you
timeline.
file your report, like say if we were to file a report today, from the date of the report, it will be 90 days until
But that timeline is determined by when the committee is
finished with the report.
finished with the report, not incorporated as a committee to answer the question? Or when your report is, when's the clock start?
The first clock started the day we were elected, and we had 9 months, which is
9 months.
August 5th.
And that's determined by
our
what?
report.
What is that?
That's by a Faulkner Act.
Faulkner Act, okay.
And then 90 days after we file our report.
That's when you have to correct
we
it.
have an
And
election.
from the, okay, thank you.
Anybody else, please? Anything else? Thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. And we're somewhere in the city every Monday night, the first 4 Mondays of the month, usually on the sign. We also have a website, which we're very proud of. Very good, simple but informative website. And you can now sign up to be on a mailing list, and we're happy to send you agendas ahead of time. All our minutes are on the website. All our meetings are recorded. Those recordings are on the website. Today's forum is being filmed. That will be on the website. Miscellaneous documentation is there. And if you have any suggestions, please email us. There's an email address there. We really, really need to hear from you. This was very informative. It was
And
great.
the commission was created to hear the people, so we really want to hear from the people. Thank you for presenting an opportunity for us to hear.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We hope to do it again, and we do plan on doing one. We tentatively have plans to do one after we file our report to explain why we chose what we chose, and to encourage you all to come out and vote for what we've chosen.
Your comments here today will certainly be a considerable part of that debate while we select. Absolutely. Back to you for approval.
But if you come on the 6th of May, all the answers that were put today, all the questions will be answered at our meeting, and it will be published when it's coming. It's always published in the paper. So we really urge you to come, so you will have answers on those questions.
And please email us with suggestions of people that we should talk to, towns we should go to. That's really helpful. We're trying to interview as many people as possible. Any closing remarks, anybody?
And there's a rumor out there that we have already formed our opinion of what type of government we want. Don't believe the hype, that's not so.
We have not made no decision. We're still studying because it's very complex and it's very important what we're going to suggest. So we cannot make that in a very quick time. And we're trying to go to more other municipalities, listen to their council meeting. We just went to Long Branch and listen to their meeting to see what they're doing and how they conduct their government. And we're trying to do that to different cities.
No, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather today, but I want to thank everybody for coming. And we're trying our best, that's all I could say. And thank you, City Manager, and Ernie, and
Mr. Matasera, thank you very much.
thank you for lunch, too, also. And that's it, Paul. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
Sure, just I know weekends go very fast, so for you to take a considerable amount of time on a Saturday, thank you so much for your commitment to be here, and it is definitely a pleasure.
And please have some lunch.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.